Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. Welcome if this is your first time here. So this is going to be a love and spirituality reading for fire signs, Leo, Aries, and Sagittarius. And I'll also be doing an extended video, so I'll leave the link to that in the description box down below. All right, fire signs. So I already pulled cards for you just to save time. So immediately what I was hearing during meditation was some sort of argument. It was like some sort of bickering that I was hearing, and it was quite loud. So I'm wondering if some of you have gotten into some sort of confrontation as of late, or it's just some sort of explosive energy. I don't know if the confrontation was outward, meaning like two people in confrontation, or if it was some sort of inner conflict. So like some of you could have been exploding and some of you could have been imploding. So even if you didn't express your rage outwardly, some of you could just have been feeling it internally is what I was hearing. Yeah, it was really, really loud. So I'm not sure if that is of significance to any of you, but I definitely was hearing that while in meditation. I also was hearing a lot of insults, either directed at you or directed at, I'm trying to figure out the best way to phrase this, because I was hearing it in a very strange way. Like I was hearing insults. It's almost like you were hurling insults at someone, but they were like hitting you, or someone was hurling insults at you, but it was hitting them. Like, you know, projection, like when you are like cursing someone out and pointing out all their flaws, usually there's something within you that could apply to those flaws as well. Like that saying, you know, you can't point one finger without three pointing back at you, that sort of thing. So it was like insults that were boomeranging. So I know this might sound weird, but if you have had a confrontation and there were insults thrown, maybe you should go back and think about the insults that were thrown. They could teach you something about yourself that is subconscious, if that makes sense. So let's say that you got into a confrontation and you were just screaming at someone like, you're so selfish, you know. If you stop and analyze that insult, it could be something within you that needs to be more selfish, or maybe you're selfish in a different way. And same goes for that person. Like maybe someone was insulting you and, you know, they called you, I don't know, lazy, you know. Maybe you don't feel like getting up and doing certain things, and so they insult you and call you lazy. If they were to analyze their own behavior or the way that they operate, they'll find that they're lazy in some way too. So for example, those parents who, if they see their kids home relaxing, they'll come in and start bitching about it. Like, oh my God, y'all are so lazy, get up and do something. But if that parent were to dive deep within themselves, they would see that maybe they're lazy in some way too. Maybe they're emotionally lazy, you know, meaning that they don't want to do the emotional work required to bond with their children. I know it gets deep, but basically that's what I was hearing in meditation. Like some of you are needing to listen to the insults being hurled because they have the ability to teach you something about yourself. Okay. Of course, sometimes people are just assholes and we're insulting them because we feel as though they really are assholes. Like sometimes it doesn't go any deeper than that. But for the most part, it's usually something that you can learn within those types of conflicts or confrontations. All right, so let's jump into your reading now. The first two cards out are, and I'm sorry if you hear that noise, that's my heater. I don't know why it's so loud all of a sudden. First two cards out are, okay, so sorry if you hear a slight break in the audio, if the audio sounds different. I had to actually get up and change rooms because the heater just got ridiculously loud. I just keep experiencing interference whenever I try to sit down and do these readings, but I'm trying to push through. So, like I was saying, the first two cards out are the Page of Rods and also the Page of Swords. So there is a bit of immature energy here. So I'm wondering if some of you are in a situation that you feel is very immature, or could be dealing with a situation that brings the immature part out of you, or you bring the immature part out of them. Like it's definitely some immaturity that's being displayed here with the Page of Swords and the Page of Rods being here. But what's interesting is that I feel like whenever action is being taken, or when there is some sort of action happening, then that immature energy lessens. But when there's more thinking that's taking place, that's when the immaturity happens. So for example, let's say you are in a relationship with someone, and when you're together and going out on dates and spending time with each other, like taking that action, you know, you have fun together. You feel very positive, very optimistic about each other. But maybe when you part ways, or, you know, you go to your house, they go to their house, and you start to really think, like overthink certain situations that may have happened with this person, or red flags, that's when things get very immature and things get off balance. I hope that makes sense. So it's like you could be in a situation where basically you and the other person bring the inner child out of each other in a good way and in a bad way. So the good way, like I said, is like when you're spending time with each other, it's like you have this childlike energy, there's this joy, there's this optimism. But on the flip side of that, there's also that childlike energy of immature communication, or jumping to conclusions, or things of that sort. So again, this is like a positive thing in the sense that your inner children are interacting and playing with each other. But children, you see how they are when they fight. You see how they are when they have conflict. So yeah, but it doesn't have to be relationship. This could be friends, siblings, co-workers. This could be a job that it's like it brings out your inner child by letting you be creative in some way. But in the same breath, it's so stressful to you that it's triggering some sort of like inner child wounds, or something like that. Or like there's certain coworkers that cause your inner child wounds to flare up, like something like that. Like your inner child is being displayed for the good and the bad, or for the positive and the negative with this connection, or with this situation. And what I'm thinking is that it's meant to be that way, because a lot of people don't embrace the quote unquote negative aspect of their inner child, or what we would like to call the quote unquote shadow. It's easy to embrace our childlike positive traits, you know, our creativity, our compassion, our ability to make people laugh, our humor, like those childlike traits that we have that are positive. It's easy to embrace those. It's easy to put those on display. But the childlike traits that we have that are negative, they're much harder to accept. We're more likely to shame ourselves for them. Like, let's say, for example, you are a very clingy person. Like, you get very clingy when you feel connected to someone. Most likely your inner child, most likely that was formed while you were a child. So that's your inner child that is clingy and maybe fears being abandoned. And when you get clingy, you can start to shame yourself for it, even though that's counterproductive, because this is your inner child that's clingy. So shaming a child is just going to make their behavior even worse, or make their behavior become even more intense. You're needing to soothe that part of your inner child, you see? So it's like two aspects of your inner child being displayed within this connection. And this is like giving you an opportunity to get to know both sides of your inner child, and accept both sides of them. And when I say accept, I don't mean you just allow yourself to be immature or throw a fit or throw a tantrum. You know, it's not that, but it's like when you really start to have compassion for your inner child, you'll be very surprised that the quote unquote negative behaviors start to die down, kind of like an actual child. When an actual child is soothed and they're getting the love and attention and care that they need, sure, they might act out sometimes, but for the most part, they're going to be happy and content, and their negative behavior is going to die down some because they've been soothed, you see? So a lot of people take the opposite route of trying to suppress that aspect of themselves, when really they need to be soothing that aspect of themselves, you see? So the Lover's card is here in the reverse, and that, hold on one second. Oh gosh, a message tried to come through and then I lost it. It'll come back. But the Lover's card is here, and the King of Rods is here in the reverse. So this is definitely some sort of connection that you have been in. It doesn't have to be a specific one. This could be just in general the connections that you've taken part in. The ones that have started out very loving, caring, kind, genuine. It's basically what I'm seeing is that was the positive, quote unquote, aspect of your inner child bonding with this person. And if you're wondering why things go wrong, that's why. It's like, it's almost like, do you know how when a child loves someone, they love them so innocently and then kind of like in a naive way, like children are just so trusting. That's why you have to like tell a child like, no, you know, you can't take candy from strangers. Like you have to kind of tell a child to not be so trusting. So sometimes when you get into a connection, your inner child may be the one to bond with this person. Very trusting, can be a little bit naive. And this is not to shame you or in a bad way. A lot of people operate like this when it comes to relationships. Especially people who are dealing with some sort of childhood trauma, which most of us are. Let's be real here. So yeah, that's what it is. It's like your inner child bonding with the person, and then it's like you have a hard time progressing in that connection in a mature way because it started out in an immature way, not in a bad immature way, but in a way like childlike, that childlike wonder, that childlike attachment. And it's very hard to sometimes transform the connection into a mature one when the bonding was done between your inner child and that person. You see? Usually that's when a lot of people start to realize their inner child wounds, and they start to heal their inner child wounds because of connections like that or situations like that, where you sort of hand your inner child over to another person to raise. And a lot of the times that will end in disaster, you know? Most people, I'm not going to say most, but I mean, I think there's no surprise, or I don't think that it's any shocking or breaking news that, you know, there are people who are terrible parents and who do terrible things to children. And you would think that they see the innocence in a child and that they wouldn't harm that child. But no. Sometimes they are so wounded and broken within themselves that they will turn around and hurt their child. Same goes for your inner child. If you hand your inner child over to someone who is wounded and damaged and broken within themselves, most likely they're going to mistreat your inner child. So when I say hand your inner child over, I mean when you bring out that very vulnerable, sensitive, like side of you that is your inner child. This person could see that within you, and you think, you know, they see this innocence in me, they see this vulnerability, so they're not going to hurt me, because what type of monster would do that? Yeah, well, some people are monsters, you know, not to be cynical, but some people are monsters. But even if they're not monsters, sometimes people are just so damaged and broken within themselves that they don't even have the capacity to protect your inner child or protect your innocence or protect your feelings or your emotions. So it's important for you to be that protector within yourself and guard your own inner child, and make sure when you're meeting people and forming connections with them that you're introducing yourself as the protector or as the adult, and your inner child is kind of locked away. Not locked away, but tucked comfortably away in his or her bed. That sounds better. Yeah, so like your inner child is not allowed to come out and, you know, decide who you want to date. It's like the adult has to come out and make those decisions and decide and take things slowly and connect in a way that your inner child won't be harmed. The image that I'm getting in my mind is like when you're dating or when you're forming new friendships, connections, whatever, look at it as you being a single parent, and your inner child is your child, and you're a single parent, and you have to take things very slowly with the person. And then eventually, you know, after you've been dating a while, you're like, okay, I think you're ready to meet, you know, my child. You know, like being a single parent dating and having to have that caution, it's like you're needing to take those same precautions when you're dating and treating your inner child as if, like I said, it's your child and you are the adult, or you are the single parent that needs to make sure that the person is safe before you can introduce that vulnerable, innocent, delicate part to yourself that is your inner child. You see? I'm gonna pull one more to clarify. Privileged lady in the reverse. Oh, inner child card came out, of course. King of Rods, privileged lady in the reverse, child card in the reverse. So this is, yeah, I was just looking for confirmation really, which that these cards definitely confirmed it. Needing to take on more of a protective stance and protect your inner child, protect that vulnerable side of yourself more often, like not opening up too quickly, not sharing too much of your like intimate details about yourself with people. Basically like they have to earn, you know, the right to meet that special, beautiful, vulnerable inner child of yours. It's like they have to earn it. They have to earn it. And what I'm hearing is that for some of you, I think this is for a small group of you though, because what I'm hearing specifically is like, as your confidence grows, this process is going to be easier. Like the more confident and secure you feel, it's going to be much easier for you to take your time and protect your inner child when you're forming these new connections. So there's a connection between your confidence or your sense of self-esteem and your ability to protect yourself. Because it's like the higher your self-esteem is, more than likely the stronger the relationship is that you have with yourself. Usually when you have a low self-esteem, you're disconnected from yourself, or you don't have a very strong relationship with yourself. You could be ashamed of yourself or dislike yourself, which causes you to have a low self-esteem, or vice versa. Low self-esteem causes you to dislike yourself. When you dislike yourself and you're disconnected from yourself, you're constantly running from yourself. And so you're more likely to dive headfirst into connections with people who are harmful to your inner child or harmful to that vulnerable part of yourself. You see? So it's like the more you like yourself or the higher your self-esteem is, it's going to be much easier to protect yourself. Again, let's go back to the example of being a single parent. Let's say there's a single parent who has a very low self-esteem. Maybe they've been abused their whole life. Maybe they left their child's other parent who was abusive to them. They've been battered. They don't have a sense of self-esteem or self-confidence. Of course, coming out of an abusive situation, of course, you're not going to have any self-esteem or confidence. So they've been, like I said, they've been battered. They've been bruised. And it's like, instead of doing the healing work, they instead are out trying to look for a mate to help them raise their child. They're more likely to bring home a very dangerous person, okay, and bring that person around their child because they themselves are so broken, you see? And like I said, it doesn't have to be malicious or intentional. Like I said, some people are so broken that there's times where they will mistreat their children or they will neglect their children because they're so broken within themselves. They're trying to get their own emotional needs met. And it's like their child's feelings or well-being kind of goes out the window. Like it gets put on the back burner. So it's like their self-esteem and self-confidence is low. So they're more likely to bring home, a predator. That's what I'm hearing. More likely to bring home a predator. And when I say predator, I mean someone who is looking to use you and exploit you because they see that you're innocent and they see that you are compassionate, and they're going to use that to their advantage. And when your self-esteem is low or your self-confidence is low, it's easier for people like that to slip into the cracks and to kind of get in, Usually when you hear stories about, my parent's spouse or my step-parent mistreated me, usually the biological parent is somewhere right there watching it happen. And their self-esteem is just so low that they don't protect their child, you see? So basically, that's what I'm hearing. It's like, as you build your self-esteem and your self-confidence, it's going to be easier for you to protect yourself. Now, on the flip side of that, let's say there's a single parent who left a very toxic situation and it's just them and their child now, and they're going to therapy, they're building strong friendships, they are back in school and they're getting their life together, they're getting their career together. This parent is less likely to bring home a predator to meet their child. An undercover predator, of course. It's like they're more likely to not fall for that because they have boundaries, they have self-respect, they have self-esteem, and therefore they're in the right state of mind to take care of their child the right way. So they're not just going to just let anyone around their child. So I hope that analogy makes sense. Higher the self-esteem, the easier it is to protect your inner child. So the Four of Rods is here, and the Eight of Pentacles is here in the reverse. Interesting combination. Because what I'm seeing with this is like, work smarter, not harder. Oh, okay. All right. This is talking about inner peace and harmony. Some of you are searching for that. You're searching for inner peace. You're searching for inner harmony. Like you just want to be at peace and have peace of mind, but you're going about it the wrong way. It's almost like you're struggling against the peace of mind that you could have a bit more easily. Like, basically what I'm hearing is that for some of you, you have an idea in your mind of what a peaceful lifestyle would be like, but you have the wrong idea. You could be craving something based off of fear or based off of lack. And when you're doing that, that's going against peace. Let me explain that better. For example, let's say you're someone who feels like, I need to have a spouse in order to live a peaceful life. Nothing wrong with wanting love at all. I know a lot of people will say, oh, you're not supposed to need anyone, which is partially true, but it's nothing wrong with wanting it, right? It's nothing wrong with picturing that, you would be most at peace if you had a loving spouse and like a comfortable home. Like, yeah, that's what you feel like you want, right? But you're going about getting it the wrong way. The route that you've been taking is actually keeping you away from that spouse that you've been wanting. See? So for example, let's say you're like, okay, I'll have peace of mind once I have this spouse, right? So then you actively start looking for this spouse that you want, but you're dating or you're looking based off of past programming. So you're attracted to a certain type of person based off of things that have happened in your past. And until you address those things, then you'll keep chasing after people who don't have the ability to give you peace. So let's say, for example, you're someone who's very codependent and you are attracted to people who are a little bit more emotionally closed off. Like that's just the type of person you gravitate towards. More than likely, something happened in childhood, or you have an emotionally unavailable parent, you know? So that's why you are more drawn to emotionally unavailable people, right? So in your mind, you want that spouse, you want that peace of mind, you want that harmony. So you're like, right, I'm gonna go out and, I'm go and date and I'm gonna find it. But then you go after emotionally unavailable people because that's just your default setting. Like that's what you're drawn to. And there's no way in hell you can have this peaceful, harmonious life with someone who's emotionally unavailable. That's what I mean when I say you're working against what you actually want. So the way you would have to approach this is to first heal the aspect of yourself that caused you to be drawn towards those emotionally unavailable people. Then the universe will just bring someone into your life. You see what I mean by work smarter, not harder? Because you could have been in and out of relationships for years, like, oh, why isn't this working out? Like, why am I not finding that spouse that I want? Like, why is it that every time it feels like this is the one and then it's not? Well, most likely it's like you're dating the same type of person over and over and over, but in a different body. And you're actually struggling against, like I said, you're struggling against that peace of mind or that peaceful, harmonious relationship that you want, because you're not seeing that you are dating the same type of person over and over. And you're not seeing that what you want is in direct conflict with what you have been chasing. So you have to go back and heal whatever those wounds are. And then the universe just brings in this new person, right? Like you start to become less and less attracted to emotionally unavailable people. And then you're in alignment and the universe just brings in this person. And you're kind of like, wow, that was easy. Like all that time, like chasing this and trying to find this. And all I had to do was heal something within myself. And the universe brought exactly what I wanted. Yep, that's usually how it works. Okay, so we're gonna do the outside energy now. And the outside energy is basically the energy of something outside of yourself that is impacting you the most. So this could be a friend, this could be a relationship, this could be a job situation. So just take it as it resonates, okay? So we're gonna start with your energy first in relation to this other person. So we have the Two of Swords in reverse, the Six of Cups, and the Page of Pentacles. So there's some nostalgia here. So this could very well be you reminiscing about a past situation, someone who you feel like you had a strong spiritual bond with or spiritual connection with. This connection is confusing to you. So I'm thinking this is a past connection. And again, take it as it resonates, this could be anything. It could be a job, it could be family. This is just something that's I'm picking up within your energy field, meaning that it's something that's affecting you currently, even if you're not aware that it's affecting you. It's affecting you on an energetic level. That's why I'm picking it up within your energy. Six of Cups, like I said, thinking back on a soulmate or someone who you felt was a soulmate, someone you had a strong spiritual tie to, but you're confused. When you look back on it, it confuses you. There's a lot of cognitive dissonance when you look back, meaning that the image that you have of them doesn't match up with some of the memories that you have of them. So if you're like, oh, this person was just so loving and I just blew it, like this would have been my perfect match. When you actually look back, there are some memories that kind of confirm that this person wasn't that loving. You see, so it's confusion when you look back on this. But I'm hearing that for some of you, it's the opposite. For some of you, you may have demonized this person a lot when you were together, or you pushed them away in some way. And then when you think back, you realize that maybe you were the issue, or you were afraid of love, so you were self-sabotaging. So you may have convinced yourself that maybe they were a bad person to help you to detach from them easier. And then when you look back, you're like, wow, okay, that person really wasn't a bad person. Like, I was just self-sabotaging or things of that sort. Like, you'd be very surprised that at the lengths that our mind will go to in order to keep us detached from someone that we feel a very strong pull towards. Like our mind will start literally picking out every flaw that they have in order to help keep us detached, because we're just so ridiculously afraid of falling in love sometimes. So it could be both ways. Like I said, you could be seeing this person in a very positive light now because you're thinking back like, oh wow, like I just sabotaged that. But it could also be the other way of you thought you were remembering so many good things about them, but then when you look back, it doesn't match up. Like they actually weren't that great. So hope that makes sense. You know, take it as it resonates. With the Page of Pentacles being here, I feel like this is a good energy, because what I'm seeing is that this is all mental, meaning that you're actually not putting in effort. So that's a good thing. It's not like you're planning on going to offer this person anything. You're more just reviewing it, which is always good. Review is fine. Sometimes when we take action based off of that review, that's when things can kind of go left. Let me pull one more. Community in the reverse. Oh, okay. Oh, I'm hearing shunned. What is that about? Shunned, like, is it? It could be for some of you, you feel like you no longer have access to this person, so you have no choice but to just reflect. Like, I don't think this is a person who you can sit and talk things out with. I think you don't have access to them anymore. You feel kind of like blocked out or left out or shunned or something like that. And it doesn't have to be that they necessarily blocked you out. It could have been that there's just something in between you that caused you to not be able to communicate at all. Which is, I mean, that happens. Let me pull one more. So it's like you have no choice. Like you can't really express certain things to the person. So yeah, you have no choice but to kind of just think and review it, which again, this may be a good thing, because sometimes when we are deep in thought and we're reviewing things, if we're seeing people through rose-colored lenses because they're no longer in our lives and we don't remember the bad, like we only see the good, that can cause us to then try to rekindle something with someone who just isn't good for us. You see, like we could be trying to, like we sit and romanticize them, even though they didn't treat us well. When they're gone, it's easy to romanticize them and then take action based off of romanticizing them and then end up disappointed again. So I think it's a good thing that you have no access to this person, or they have no access to you. On the flip side of that, if this is someone who you mistreated and now you're like, oh, you know, I shouldn't have done that, or maybe you're regretting it, it's still the same scenario. It's like you don't have access to them for some reason. And I'm not sure what that is, but I'm hearing that that's for the best too. I'm gonna pull one more. Oh, okay. So if this is like I said, this was a connection where maybe you self-sabotaged in the past and you're now like regretting it, or you're like, oh, I shouldn't have treated that person like that. Everything happened exactly the way it was supposed to, because it was supposed to show you how deep your fear runs when it comes to love. For those of you who are very, very afraid of intimacy, you probably didn't even realize how afraid you actually are of intimacy until this connection. And it's like you get to sit and review how you sabotaged it, because you really are afraid of having that intimate bond. And that's something that is needing to be healed. First off, you're definitely needing to forgive yourself if that's the case. Like, don't beat yourself up over the self-sabotage, because it's really not your fault. No one would choose to sabotage a loving, caring connection. Clearly, if you're sabotaging a loving, caring connection, it's because you don't think you're worthy of it. No one would choose that. So that wasn't your choice, really. It's like you were acting based off of fear that was planted in you a very long time ago that you had no control over, like fear that was planted in you in childhood. So don't shame yourself or beat yourself up over it, because you didn't choose that. It was kind of like you were underneath like a spell, like mind control, you know, like when we get planted those fearful thoughts, or those fearful thoughts get planted into our head about love. It's like you've been brainwashed almost, and it's like your brain kind of hijacks your body and causes you to do things to sabotage. So it's literally not your fault. But the positive thing is that you see the pattern now. So you're able to see that maybe you don't believe that you are deserving or worthy of love, and you can start that healing process. So when, you know, the next person comes in that's going to give you that love, you'll be ready for it and you'll embrace it. You'll accept it. You won't sabotage it, So you have to really forgive yourself, because it's literally not your fault. Like, I understand you're the one who did the self-sabotaging, but it's not your fault, literally. It's really not. There's no way you could have controlled that. Only now that you're self-aware is the only way possible that you can control that now. But back then, no, there was no possible way you could have controlled that, or you could have known better, is what I'm saying. And you're going to find new love. This goes for both groups, by the way, of people who self-sabotaged, or people who didn't self-sabotage, who cut someone off and now you're maybe romanticizing them. For both groups, you're going to find new love. All the lessons that were learned in that situation are all prepping you for a new love, is what I'm seeing. And it's interesting, because what I'm seeing is that a lot of you are going to be finding new love, not just romantic friendships, connections, like anything. It doesn't have to just be romantic, but I'm getting that some of you are going to be finding new love, but with an old person. But I don't think it's an old person from this lifetime. It's an old person from a past life. So they're going to seem familiar to you, but it's going to be different for everyone. So use your discernment. Now let's go over to the other person's energy. We have the Knight of Cups. We have the Justice card in reverse. We have the Knight of Rods. So this person is working on really building some type of emotional stability within themselves. It looks like this person at one point was very dependent on things outside of themselves to make them happy. And they now see that they can't do that, or like they need to build happiness within themselves. So whatever this is between you and this other situation or this other person, it's very clear that you both learned some sort of a very important lesson, because they're learning the lesson of finding emotional stability within on their own. And I think you may have learned that lesson too, maybe just in a different way from them. But yeah, it's like they're learning how to find emotional stability within themselves after an injustice. Okay, see, now we're getting into it. This injustice, again, this is two groups. This injustice was either they feel as though you did them wrong. In the case of, like I said, some of you may have self-sabotaged. No shame, So you may have done them wrong and they felt an injustice, and they felt like they have to focus on building their internal happiness or their internal fulfillment emotionally. Or it could be the group of you where they did you wrong and you're looking at them through rose-colored glasses and you're romanticizing them, but they know damn well that they did you wrong. Even if you do romanticize them or you take on the blame yourself, they know deep down inside that they were wrong. It's like you can convince yourself that they weren't that bad, but they can't. They can't convince themselves that they weren't that bad. They see what they've done. And so it's like they have to kind of start from scratch in terms of like rebuilding themselves. Definitely some sort of karma took place there to help them see like the ways in which they hurt you in some way. Because ultimately they end up hurting themselves as well. So like I said, it's like they had to be, the karmic energy had to come in to help them see the error in their ways so that they can start rebuilding from scratch or start rebuilding their emotional fulfillment from within. Knight of Rods is also here in the reverse. So this person is feeling very pessimistic, even though they're on the road towards trying to heal and trying to become fulfilled. I'm hearing that they're very pessimistic at the current, like at the present moment. And I'm thinking that that's because this is one of those things where change doesn't just happen overnight. Like when you have a harsh realization about yourself and you have to kind of start from scratch, that's not something that's fun. That's not something that's pleasant. So that's why I feel like they may be a bit pessimistic, or they may be a bit down and out, or trying to find their footing, trying to find their way. I feel like for some of them, they tried to dive into something quickly in order to try to relieve themselves of the pain that they were feeling, or try to relieve themselves of this heavy karmic energy that they created, but it just ended up creating more karma. Oh, dear Lord. So for some of you, if this was like a romantic, let's say this is like a romantic partnership, and again, this is going to be different for everyone. So if you hear this, don't panic, because I'm about to say that they may have tried to, interact with someone else, or they tried to move on quickly to someone else. Don't panic for those of you who don't know that happened, because if you don't know, then I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about, like, let's say you had someone leave you and you know for a fact that they dived into a new relationship, or they dived into a new connection, or spent time with someone. If you don't know that, then I'm not talking about you. If you are confused about that, then I'm not talking about you. This is like for people who know for certain. So don't go and try to like investigate, or don't rack your brain like, wait a minute, did they do that? No, they didn't. If you don't know about it for a fact, this is not for you. This is for people who know for facts, because when it comes to my readings, it will never create confusion within your mind. If it creates confusion, or you're like, wait a minute, I feel fearful, let me go and double check. Let's check their social media to see if they moved on. Don't do it. I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about people who know for a fact that this person tried to dive into something quickly in order to absolve themselves of the guilt or the pain or whatever was caused, and they just ended up creating more karma because they used someone to try to soothe themselves, you see. And it didn't work out in their favor. So eventually they had to end up alone in order for them to work on themselves, no matter how much they tried to avoid it. And this doesn't just have to be diving into a new relationship. Maybe they tried to ghost and move to a different city and not have to deal with whatever damage they've caused. And when they get to that new city, they create the same exact cycle for themselves anyway. It's like that sort of thing, wanting to run away, but not being able to, you know, and having to face yourself eventually. So we're going to finish this in the extended. Thank you so much for watching, fire signs. I'm going to put the link in the description box down below so we can finish this. And I will see you over on my Vimeo channel. Bye. The Sun card, yeah, I feel like they're fighting very hard to overcome these negative thoughts or overcome this pain that they're having. They're fighting hard to overcome it. Yeah, this person is very determined. I think that they're just very tired of their sense of happiness coming from outside sources, because when that's the case, you give people too much control over you. Like if your happiness comes from a relationship, then that person pretty much controls you. If they choose to stay, they know it'll make you happy. If they choose to leave, they know it'll make you miserable. So they can try to use that against you and be hot and cold with you. You see what I'm saying? It's like it gives people too much power. So this person is like determined to not give their power away any longer to anything that's outside of themselves. I don't know what went on between you and this outside energy or this outside person, but your connection was definitely very impactful on them, like without a doubt, because this is like extreme transformation that's going on here. So your connection definitely made an impact on them, and they're working overtime to try to heal whatever wounds are within them.